Sapien.
Hello, everyone. We're back for the Sapien podcast. We have Dr. Gary and Dr. Lida here. Really excited to talk to everyone today. Maybe Gary could do the intro to Lida because he knows her better, but she's a great friend, and we've just been talking this whole time before we got going.
Well, yes. And as usual, I am so excited to be here with another amazing guest. Dr. Lida Fatemi is an internal medicine physician like myself. She's an associate professor at a major academic university here in the Southwest of America. She holds many accolades, and specifically, she's really just one of the most influential and motivational people I know. She does a lot of work in the space of physician wellness and self-care. She's done a lot of work to help build her residency program. We always talk, and over the years, as I've been developing with Brian, the Sapien diet and lifestyle, Lida's always challenging our ideas, and ultimately, I think, has incorporated a lot of what we talk about in her own life. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about her experiences as an academic physician, bringing to light a lot of new ideas, because I think that's what really makes you shine. Lida, is you're so open-minded and you're so willing to kind of, think for yourself in an environment where not a lot of people do. So thank you for being with us. How are you today?
Thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Gary and Brian. I'm good. I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy we get to hang out because of this whole past year and a half, we usually hang out like 3 times a year, and we haven't really seen each other that much, maybe once. So I'm really excited for this to be here with you guys. And thank you for the introduction. It's being an academic physician is challenging. Working in the system is challenging because there are so many system requirements. And I know from you having your own practice, it must be so difficult to deal with regulations and all of that. And that's what creates burnout in all of us. That it's all those little self-betrayals that we have to put up with when things don't feel right, and you have to do them because someone said so. A very paternalistic way of having built the medical system. It needs to change. It needs to evolve. And that's why we're here. And yes, I use Sapien in my daily life 100%. It's a lifestyle. It is also a constant reflection on how you feel with what you eat and how you think and what you do. And as we were talking before you joined, Gary, with Brian, is about the way our ancestors used to live, right? And not to get stuck in that, but to learn from their wisdom, because they did some things right and they did some things wrong, but to be now truly conscious of what we're doing every step of the way, every moment that we're living. It's not just, oh, I eat this and I forget about that. And it's a lifestyle. It's everything. It's global. It's not 360. It's everywhere, every point. And you get feedback about yourself. And the key to all of it is that I think we have forgotten to check in with ourselves. We've forgotten about nature, and how it provides everything for us in abundance, and in beauty and in excellence, and it's impeccable. And recently, what keeps coming up for me is, what are we doing in turn for nature? And what you guys promote is to have more of that homeostasis and to promote homeostasis. And that's what brings health. That's what brings healing. Our bodies know, nature knows exactly what to do to heal itself. And with nutrition and exercise and movement, and it doesn't have to be a particular regimen of anything. It's and I'm speaking experientially because I don't just promote something because someone said so. I do it for myself. I experience it fully and completely before I speak to it. Um, and so, Sapien has been an awesome lifestyle change. One of the cornerstones of it being intermittent fasting. I do it every day. I do it every day, and it's okay to be a little hungry. I'm not dying. It's okay to be a little hungry, and it brings health. And in some religions, you have fasting, and I mean, you guys are experts on this, and you guys can go, days and days talking about this. But for me, it's very important for clarity of mind, for my being as productive as I want to be, or as contemplative as I need to be. In my meditations, I'm much more clear in my path. I'm much more clear when I do intermittent fasting, when I eat a higher animal fat and protein content food. And I almost don't at all eat carbs or grains. Processed foods are just not a part of our life. Vegetable oils are not a part of our life. So yes to all of that: avocado oil, ghee, butter, all the things that you promote is a part of my life. And I used it in my pregnancy, my latest pregnancy. My baby is Sela is 8 months old now, and
Hey.
super healthy baby. And I used Sapien lifestyle in my pregnancy too, with the caveat of, in pregnancy, your needs are different. And so you have to keep checking in and seeing, hey, maybe I do need more carbs today. But what kind of carbs am I choosing to have, and what feels good? And the feeling is what we've lost in our society, because it's so feminine, but we all know what's right and what feels right to us. And so I use that as my compass, um, more recently than ever before. And I've developed this over, my evolution, my personal evolution. But yeah, in pregnancy, the carbs that I would choose to eat would be sweet potatoes, or vegetables and things like that. I did not ever touch cake, or like just processed stuff. Or I would do more on the keto side, because the keto, like over the shelf, you now have some keto snacks, which is wonderful, and they're made from vegetables or cassava flour, or
Dark
things.
chocolate.
I'm sorry.
Dark chocolate. Yeah, no, I hear you. You know, when I was going through this whole journey and kind of opening my mind to rethinking nutrition and rethinking a lot of what we were taught, we would talk a lot, and we would kind of challenge each other. And it seems like clearly we have landed, and I'm sure the listeners gather, we have landed on the same sort of ethos or lifestyle. And obviously, I think it's really done well for us. We have like very challenging lifestyles. You have a family. I'm growing a family, and to have a lifestyle that really builds you and makes you stronger and more resilient and more capable of challenges, it's so powerful. One thing I find myself talking about so much on these podcasts is how challenging it is, like you said in the beginning, to bring these ideas to light, and to sort of see how in our world of Western medicine, how people are either shocked or they're completely resistant to hearing it, or they think we're crazy sometimes. And while it is challenging in my private practice, I'm sort of the creator of that, right? I create that environment. I just dictate what that looks like, what my clinic looks like. A lot of my patients are self-selecting, but that's not true for you. I mean, you're in a major hospital setting. You've got other high profile doctors working with you. And I guess my question is how have you navigated that? Because for me, it's been finding people on my team, finding people that are open-minded and just working with them. And because I can control it, I don't need to talk to, the vegan OB-GYNs that are surrounding me, because it's okay. There's people for them too. And we might disagree, and that's okay. But then I find like-minded doctors. I say vegan OB-GYN just because it's just so prevalent in my community. It's bizarre that there's that pattern, but whatever. I guess, again, the question is like being in an academic setting where they're pushing these are really archaic ideas about nutrition and life. Like, what do you just kind of stay to your lane, make your recommendations and move on? Do you try to challenge these people? Do they challenge you? Like, what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. I think when I think my style has evolved over time. Initially, there was that challenge. There was more of a, because the ego gets involved, right? I'm right, you're wrong, there, whatever, And I think what's important is to, as you said, hear each other out and see each other's perspectives. Whether you're vegetarian, vegan, meat eater, not meat, whatever, cockroach eater, I don't care. The centerpiece to all of it to me is health and healing. And if I'm not promoting that, then I'm not doing what I'm here to do. And so, now I stand in my light and I stand in my strength, and I will approach whoever I need to approach at the time. And I feel that, certain patients need to hear. So I just sit with them and I spend time. I'll spend an hour in the hospital with some of my patients, my inpatient patients. You're right. It's a more challenging environment in the fact that I don't have follow up and I don't have follow through to see how they what are they doing, how much of it has stuck, but it's all about planting a seed and they can take whatever they want from it. And at some point, else maybe through their journey they'll come across another person who says something that is like my mind opening for them, and they're like, yeah, that, she said that, he said that, da, 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 da. And then it comes together and maybe they'll be able to find their way. But I don't hesitate. I used to hesitate before, but I don't hesitate to talk about nutrition. And I'll bring in the science. I'll also bring in, hey, this is just not good for you, and some are open, some are not. And I just leave it at that. I also leave my ego behind the door, and I say,
Do that.
this is just, this is information that we now have, that we have seen and experienced, that brings health to your cells and healing to your body. And you take it as you wish. And
what about your colleagues though?
I have some I don't try to change their mind.
Yeah.
I don't try to change their mind. Because everyone comes from a different perspective. And the way I see it is, if I'm standing in my light, then maybe they'll gain something from it. And if they don't, that's great too. And I move on with life, But with my residents and my medical students, we do education. We do hardcore education. We talk about it.
About Sapien diet.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And they have your website.
Oh.
They definitely go
Wow.
on and like, yeah, no, every single one. Every time I'm on, I direct my patients to you guys too, to sapien.org. Because it's beautiful. You guys are serving, and
Wow.
I'm so thankful.
That's great. Maybe we should make a better website. We kind of just threw it up. We should get some more resources and all that. I didn't know all this. That's so awesome that you're embracing it in your
Yeah.
line of work. And I actually wanted to ask, just if you could tell the audience more of what you do on a daily basis, and you don't have to say where you work exactly, but just what you do and what you're in charge of and what goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm an academic hospitalist. So Gary used to do this work as well in the hospital. Um, so I teach residents, I teach medical students on inpatient wards. I take care of pretty sick patients. Some of them are they're they're dissociating from life, and that's why they're so sick. But they are kind of on the cusp of, hey, does the patient need to go to the ICU or not? And at the center that I'm at, we I'll say it, I think it's part of the flow. I'm feeling it. I work at UNM, University of New Mexico, and we're the only university program in the entire state. Something crazy like we also serve parts of the states around us. So Texas, Southern Colorado, and Eastern Arizona. So we have a huge native population here that we serve. And it's a state and an academic institution, academic hospital. So it makes it very unique in the population that we serve. We serve about 2 million people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty large. And what I have found is, as Gary was saying too, I'm very much about just human wellness in general. And I didn't know, I went into medicine thinking that I'm going to be serving my patients. And as I've evolved, it's very apparent that I'm here to serve my peers, my profession, because we're so ill in every aspect of every aspect, to the point that we are the number one profession in suicide, and have been for about 10 years. The burnout rates are, they say, studies say it's like 50-55%, but it's really 90%, if you really dig deep, to the point that 90% of doctors tell their children not to go into medicine.
Wow.
And that goes to show you how bad it is for us. And it's because, we sold our very sacred relationship of doctor patient to pharmaceutical industry and the insurance companies. And that happened in the 1980s and 90s. And so they found out, oh, the doctor's not going to stand up for themselves, and they're not going to set boundaries for this sacred relationship. I don't think we realized how badly they're going to take advantage. And so we opened the doors, and some of it was also doctor on doctor, right? And that still happens, unfortunately. And I am in a place that at UNM I carved a path to leadership, to be a physician leader, so that I could have influence over policies that are made in the hospital, where how doctors are affected by.
Oh, can you hear her?
No, she just disappeared.
So I'm back in. I had to move inside because of my reception with Wi-Fi. So you'll see the background change. um, so we were talking about physicians and how we really allowed insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies to tap into the sacred relationship between physician and patient. And we forgot that it mattered for us to advocate, and for it to stand up and say no, and to set boundaries. And now we find ourselves in this really terrible, terrible, terrible healthcare system that we're all experiencing, not just physicians, but every patient that's gone through any kind of medical care will tell you how convoluted, how chaotic, how nerve-wracking it is. It's not healthcare. We should not be calling it healthcare. It's disease care and disease promotion. We keep throwing drugs at patients and introducing toxins where we have nutrition, when we have plants, when we have animals that nature provided for us and continues to provide for us in abundance. We need nothing else. We need to be immersed in nature, and that's what we need. But it's too profitable, right? There's a lot of money involved, and the stakeholders, they have engaged in predatory capitalism, and it's very difficult to change the system, other than us changing ourselves one at a time. And so my work now is not only working within the system as a physician leader to change policy that affects physicians, and in turn will affect patients, because once physicians are well and feel good and have good nutrition, and understand what good nutrition is, and understand what self-care is, and understand what meditation is to calm the mind, then they can be present with their patients. And we are the unit. Each one of us is a unit of healthcare or disease care, whatever you want to call it. Hopefully we
Mm.
evolve to healthcare. Um, is that understanding that we're each a unit of that, that we have that responsibility to care for ourselves. And in turn, that will affect our patients and our presence, and to set boundaries and to advocate. But it all starts from within. Nothing is out here, everything is in here. Um, we each have a universe within us that we need to tap into and bring the truth out.
It's so important because I think um, what many people don't think about, it's, if you go to your doctor, a doctor should be healthy. A doctor should be knowledgeable about how to take care of themselves. Um, Part of our training should be how to make ourselves the healthiest we can be, right? It shouldn't just be memorizing, pathology and memorizing all of the medications and the side effects and learning how to take care of patients to avoid getting sued and learning how to follow recommendations to, make sure we're following and in compliance with everything. Not only is the doctor patient relationship lost, the art of medicine has been lost. And I think on some level, the art of medicine, what it really means, it's not like, oh, you're a hocus pocus doctor making stuff up for everyone, right? But rather it's the art of integrating, our experience with nature, our experience with our spirit, with our with our psyche, with our body, with all of these different components of what makes you a human being, and integrating them, and then looking at the patient in front of you and giving a meaningful intervention, not just you have these numbers, do this. And I think that it all really starts with, like, in medical school. In medical school, they don't select people for their interpersonal skills. They select people for how many boxes they've checked on a list of 30 things to get into school. And often people that have checked the most boxes lack real life experience. And we've both seen that. I think we became osteopathic physicians because we had life experience and because it wasn't all about checking boxes. And then, I think the osteopathic profession lends to people that are more experienced, because it's a complicated, path, but it's hard to get into an MD program when you have 45 check boxes. Oh, and by the way, I have a life, I have a family, I have a bunch of other things. They ask you basically to sacrifice everything to become a doctor. But then when you become a doctor without the life experience, you're not able to serve your patients. And then when you go to medical school, there's no emphasis on, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't, like, wallow your sorrows while you're studying in processed grains and vegetable oils and sweets, gain 40 pounds, and wonder what the heck is going on. And I say that because it just happens. This is what happens to people. They lose themselves to our training. Then they go on to residency, and residency is all about showing how brutally hard you can work and how many hours you can work and who could be the most dedicated. And it's like, you're missing the point. To do what we do in a meaningful way, you have to be a dynamic person that is also taking care of themselves. So, you've really moved your career into the physician wellness. And it's like, to me, it's so important because that's where we're going to make a dent. Like me and Brian, we're trying to make a dent in the public's mind when it comes to understanding lifestyle and nutrition. And what our challenge is that we have a lot of listeners that are from within, and, like, how do you reach others, right? And I brought it up before that the way you reach others is by helping each unit, like, as you said, of healthcare practitioners. And that's not just MDs and DOs. That's everyone. That's NPs, that's PAs, that's RNs, that's MAs, that's everyone. Like, I know that you are always, like, connecting with everyone and not treating someone who's not a doctor like they're below you, which is so common in our space. So I guess I'd love to hear what you're specifically teaching, what you're specifically doing for your colleagues to try to help them, find their own health.
Yeah. And you cut out in the last like 2 seconds, so I'm sorry if I didn't catch that. But You know, to your point, I've created these retreats for physicians to immerse in nature, and learn from nature and be in source energy, and be able to exchange that energy. And we had our first retreat on Sunday on the 16th. I had residents who just heard through the grapevine. It was supposed to be for physician moms, and just a bunch of them just reached out to me. They're like, "We need this. Can we please come?" I'm like, "Of course you can." And it was beautiful. There was an introduction to themselves. Um, that and you're right. They had put themselves to the side for so long that we had people crying. We laughed together, we cried together. Um, we did work. We did work, and from that, a community was born as well. And it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and they continue to. There's constant communication between. It was 7 of them that came, and I had some co-coaches, and I do physician coaching because it's been shown to be the most effective measure for remedying burnout, and burnout really in medicine. And I call it a lot of self-betrayal. It's a lot of self-abuse that we take on without setting boundaries. And our retreat was on self-care and boundary setting. And it is so necessary. And we talked about nutrition briefly. I provided only Sapien approved nutrients to them. I'll send you a picture later.
I can't wait to see.
But yeah, and the way I see it too is every physician on average comes across about 3,000 patients a year. Now, every patient is connected to an entire system, right? Of their families, of their friends. Imagine the impact of one physician. So without even knowing, one physician is an influencer, right? On a pretty massive level, because you're dealing with health and healing. And yet, you're right, the healing arts, right? That's the art of medicine that we've forgotten about. And it's interesting you bring in the psyche and the mental health and all of that, because that part of medicine has gotten so forgotten about. And with the psychedelic research that's coming through, that's being seen again. And I think what had happened is that our systems had become so patriarchal. And I'm not saying that in a negative way at all. We all have male, female in us. We have mom, dad, our chemistry, our genetics are made out of male, female. So each one of us has male, female energy within us. When we're out of balance with one energy versus the other, then we see healthcare, disease care, right, as is. We just got too involved with our minds, which is more male, and we forgot about the feel. Like, does this feel right to me? And let me take a moment and really think about, is this the right thing that I'm doing for myself and signing up for the right thing, or for my patient in turn, or not? And when we got into this crazy cycle of the system, right? No guidelines, da, 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 and then you get utilization review calls, then you get, oh, CMS says notes, da, 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 and you have to like send pre-auth for this, and you don't have time to pause. The system has not allowed and is not allowing for us to come up for air, for a moment to sit with ourselves and see not just the relationship we have with each other and our patients, but what is my relationship with myself? And that's where it all starts. And I do see a movement and evolution that's happening, and it starts with us. It starts with us. It starts today.
This is so awesome. You're like the superstar. I feel like we need to make you a sapien leader in this journey that we're on with Dr. Gary and I. Because I love how you say that how it trickles down. All right. And we're trying to hit people at the lowest level, which is needed. But I think what you're doing is far more important. And if there's doctors listening, they're up on the ladder. And how do we get more people like you in the positions of, I don't know if it's power, but just of influence, positions of influence in major settings like universities and where the physicians are educated in the first place, and then it can trickle down to the masses. And I think that's what we need. And I mean, hopefully if someone's listening, if anyone knows anyone that has this mindset, how can we just get a hold of the people at the highest level, right? And then we can have the most effective change from there.
Yeah, and you know, Brian, I think the work that you guys are doing from every single individual, you have to remember, again, they have an entire system that is being affected positively by what you guys do. So I would not. It has all the value. What you guys have done is absolutely incredible. Me being one of them,
Mhm.
right? And my family and my children, you know, my little one, 8 month old, he's eating meat. At 4 months old, we started giving him meat and he loves it. He teethes on bone. I mean, like we have ribs, we had ribs last night and he's just not sitting there gnawing on bone as I'm feeding him the rib meat, you know, and and he was just he loves it. He loves it. And he is telling us that this is the right way. He's telling us. Um, and of course, it also has to do with exposure and what we expose our children to and all of that too, and how young we do it. It becomes conditional and becomes habits for their lives. And so important to educate parents as well so that the future generations live healthy lives. um, you know, I will contemplate on that question as well, Brian. I think I'd be more than happy to be a spokesperson for you guys too, because this is, I promote you guys every time I'm on service in the hospital with every patient that comes along that I feel is needs to hear it. You have to feel it. It cannot be forced. I think that's very important. That's where the art comes from, and the art, as you were saying, Gary, is the female. You know, and I love that you guys are balanced in your male female. You know, energies. It's not one or the other. And as a female, same. You know, I work on balancing my male female, and I have a husband who's always empowering and always holding me as I hold him. And that's another thing that our society is going through right now, where we, you know, yes, there's a lot of systems in place that we need to, you know, let go of and destructure to allow the true source come through. Um, but it's only in that balance of male female that the feeling and some of the systems, we need both. We need processes and information, um, as much as we need the feel and the psyche to be in the right place. um, but yeah, like I would love to, I would love to help out in any way I can.
I think that's really where it's at. I think you're, you know, as your husband, who's one of my best friends, Dr. Blavir Rukov, always said, you're what is it, like a highly esteemed physician, or what's the term?
A highly decorated
Highly
physician.
decorated physician. So what I mean to say is, you know, Dr. Fatemi is very academic. She knows her shit. Basically, she knows her research. She knows her science. She knows what we've been taught. She's been very committed to becoming the best internal medicine doctor. And so over the time we've known each other, I think both of us have gone through this, and what you just speak about it so eloquently, the spirit, the energy, right? Something that I think both of us consider to be part of this foo-foo world of non-medicine is actually at the heart of what we do every day, right? Like most of what you're talking about here is understanding that, yeah, we don't have studies to talk about energy, but it's a very real thing. It's a very, and you don't need them because you could feel it, right? If you could feel someone's sadness, you could feel someone's happiness, you can feel when someone is imbalanced in the male female, like you're talking about. You can feel like when someone is completely not aware of their own depression or their own struggles mentally and just completely defer to just being too fixated on, again, research or scientific or recommendations or these things. And like a true integrative physician in my eyes, and someone who can really change the course of this thing, is someone who's working from within, who understands all the science and the power of that science, doesn't minimize it, doesn't say, no, I won't use drugs, I only use plants and herbs, right? Like that's not the right idea. It's not about fighting fire with fire. It's about understanding that, to be a true healer or like a really meaningful doctor, not just someone who pushes the system forward or does what they're told, but someone who truly like can intervene in someone's life and make a dramatic change that sets this person up for success for the rest of their life. They have to be balanced in that spiritual, emotional, psychosocial component, as well as all of the science, because you need to know your drugs, you need to know your medicine, you need to know your disease processes, because so many of our patients have all these diseases and you can't not treat them. That's silly. That's how people get in trouble and die, right? So, there's so much good that we do in Western medicine, but there's so much that we're lacking. And I think it's that spiritual, emotional, and what's considered in our world often foo-foo part of medicine, but it's not. It's the art. It's what takes a scientist and makes him a healer, or takes someone who's an influencer and someone who can change the world, because you have to be balanced. You have to understand all of these dynamics. And I think that, that's so powerful when you talk, you can kind of project that idea. And to speak to your male female thing, specifically, like, in our space, there's a lot of guys that are like, oh, I eat meat. And I think Bree and Brian both get a little bit of that. Like, oh, you're just dude bros. Like, you like to eat meat. Ha, ha, ha. Right. But that's not where we're coming from. We're coming from a place of understanding that our planet is being broken down by our food system, and that there's a way to do it where you don't argue about plants and animals, but you promote a really thoughtful, conscious approach to the food system, to what you put in your mouth. But I think that coming from a academic female, right? Someone who's climbed the ranks of the academic and Western medicine world, and a female, because the healthcare system has been so patriarchal and has been so male driven since the beginning of Western medicine, although there's been some very prominent females that have pushed the envelope, but still, like the culture is very masculine. It's very like, oh, we're gonna not sleep and we're gonna work and we can do it. We're so strong. That doesn't mean you're strong. That means you're stupid. That means you're missing half of the thing of like, you need to sleep to make a thoughtful, and they do studies of how much do you need to sleep. What are you talking about? Like, you need to be a human being. Humans need to sleep. What are we talking about when you do a study on how many hours a resident needs to sleep? So I think like we've been really frustrated with sort of how our profession has tried to help doctors when they're missing the point. Like they need to connect with their spiritual self, and there's a huge role for spirituality, whether it be religious or just self-driven, to be a healthy person. And I know that's something that you and me have really explored together through in our personal life together, in our friend group, and with Brian even. We've had some really amazing experiences. So kind of getting to that, what do you see can really help? I think you talked a little bit about psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. I think you mentioned that, but like, what do you see other than, the lifestyle stuff we're talking about as a way we can really help people with their mental health, help physicians, help the general public?
Mm-hmm. I would, number one, I would say get into nature, because that is where true source is coming through form. Immerse yourself as often as you can, get in there and be by a river. Like, just sit there. You don't need to be talking, you don't need to be doing, you don't need to be anything, nothing to change, nothing to do. Connect with your breath, just be in nature under a tree. If you have plants, just sit with them. They have no blockages. They have no humanness to block their source energy from coming through. Animals are the same. That's why with pets, we feel that, right? We feel that unconditional love because nature gives us that unconditional love without judgment. As humans, we judge ourselves constantly. The tree that's sitting there doesn't care. I think of it. It's not judging itself. There's no internal conflict whatsoever. It just is its best in its form that was given it's consciousness that's been manifested into nature in some way, and we are the same. It's that we have thought and we block ourselves, we block the source from being channeled, and the more we connect with what feeds our soul is really what it's about. And plant medicine and psychedelic psychotherapy absolutely has its place, but it has to be used with a lot of conscious awareness. You cannot just play. It needs to be very consciously used. There's a reason, in the 60s, 70s, we just were unconscious. We just played, and played hard, and people got hurt. And that wasn't the right way either. That's why I say that there needs to be the science, and you say the same, and plus the feel, because the plants do show they're allies. We evolved with plants, we evolved with animals, we evolved with nature, and now we block ourselves off with with our homes and concrete, but the plants do show us our way to ourselves. Now the key to it is to be coached through. You have to have coaching with it, and that's what I do with my people. I coach before I use plant for as a tool of self connection and self discovery, because that's where all the work starts, and healing, and then integrate afterwards. And it has to be done the right way. It cannot be we can't be irresponsibly doing it, and don't bring religion into it. I have heard I have heard a lot of people using beforehand prayers and this and that, and no, just be with nature. Nature shows you the way. You don't need fancy things, you don't need crystals, you don't need. Plants show you the path, and you show you the path. So yeah, that's that's what I have. But let me tell you, to be balanced, to be in your light, and to be able to channel that energy and at your best, you have to work on it every day. This is not something that I do on vacation. This is not something I do tomorrow. This is something I'm doing as we speak. This is, I'm connected with my breath. I'm connected with the earth as I'm sitting on it, as it's holding me up. As I'm speaking, and the words that I choose, each word is chosen, that our words are so powerful, and to be careful with the words that we use, because there's so much energy, and the words that we use for in regards to us, powerful. What kind of words am I choosing to use up here about myself? That's where it all starts. That's where this world has come to be, is with the thoughts that we have within us.
Man, I love it.
This is amazing.
I really
Go.
Yeah, I really love it, Lida. There's just something about the way you speak and the tone, because I think especially in today's day and age, where everyone's looking for a guru, or looking for a fad, or looking for a community. Like, I think the biggest message that I hear from you, and I've learned from you over the years, is to look within yourself, to take responsibility for what you can take responsibility for. When we talk about food, the biggest thing is like, take responsibility for everything you put in your mouth, learn about it. Here's a bunch of education about it, and really make thoughtful decisions. But I think on a deeper level, it's make thoughtful decisions about what you do with every second of your life. Don't be mindless. Don't just let someone tell you how to act, but like act how you're supposed to act from the inside. And if you don't know what that's like, stop, put the screen down, put everything away, take 5 or 10 minutes a day or a couple times a day to really like reflect. And that's not something I ever did. I always struggled with like my mood, and I always used things like music and exercise to drown everything out, right? And as I'm kind of getting older, I realized like those things are great. That's a part of my life. That's my lifestyle. I'm always going to do that. But more and more, I find myself just sitting there. Like I'll plant a cactus with my wife, and I will like wake up in the morning, and instead of checking my phone and seeing what's going on with the news or checking my emails, I will literally sit in my backyard or sit on my patio and like stare at the plant or sit next to the plant. And it's really true. It seems silly, but it's so important because our lives are so abnormal. Like the lives that we live, the demands on us, the environment that we've built in these cities. It's really taxing on our spirit and on our energy. And you know, it's not about going on vacation. It's not about blocking it out with the most intense run I can do every time, but instead just like sitting with it, right? Sitting with it and processing it. And we're saying the same stuff over and over again, but it's because it is so lacking, and it's been so minimized in our world. And there's so many people that continue to just fixate on proving their argument one way or the other. They're missing the point that like it's all right in front of you. Like again, a lot of what we talk about with Brian came from a realization that we didn't need all the research. We love the research, but we didn't need it. It's right there when you start looking at history, when you start feeling your body, when you start thinking like, what does this food make me feel like? Or what does sitting in the sun do for me? Or what does it feel like to do, you know, whatever treatments or modalities you're utilizing, and then understand, hey, maybe that doesn't work for me, but this feels really good, and I'm gonna like lean into that. So I love it, and it's so inspiring. You know, if we can change gears here a little, because I before we run out of time, I really want to bring this up because like it was so okay, so I'm just going to tell the story and then you could kind of like fill it in. I'll say it from my perspective, but like in my perspective, Lida is like very, very courageous, because as much as it is challenging for me to do what I do, to be within the system, to be in this academic environment and talk about things like spirituality and take different positions on nutrition is very challenging. It's like, it's scary, you know, and there's so much pushback, and you've obviously built towards having that courage to stand in your light. But recently, I'll just tell the story. So recently, Lida made this awesome post on her social media platform. She had just finished her second vaccination. This was like a month ago. So whenever you're listening to this, this was before the CDC changed their guidelines that if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. So she got her second vaccine. She's been frustrated with the whole, you know, response to COVID. And she's like, look, I got vaccinated. I'm done. I'm not wearing my mask anymore. Like, why would I wear this mask? I'm vaccinated. What was the point of all of this if I still have to wear a mask? And by the way, the mask is not benign. When you don't see people smiling, when you don't have that interpersonal connection, when you're constantly in fear because you have this mask on, it is significantly detrimental to our lives. It is not good. It's not like, oh, just wear a mask and shut up. No, if you've done, you know, and you said that from your own intuition, right? Like you came from that of like, this is what makes sense to me. I have a brain, I'm a doctor, I'm a human. Like, I'm not wearing a mask after this. And so what happened is she got reprimanded aggressively, as far as I could tell, by her employer. And that post had to go.
You know, the peers was really where it came from.
The peers.
Peers. And I think it was my peers that then were hurt, you know, by this. And so they felt that something needed to be done. about it. And so
What hurt them?
ego.
Because you took a position that was based on your own mind and not by CDC guidelines.
Right. And I think what happens, especially with this, with COVID, it's a lot of belief, right? So when you say something against someone's belief, then they get aggravated, right? And they're like, what? My entire world has been built on this belief. And how could you? And I could have, I watched it a couple of times after. I had it on for about a week until I got called into the big boss's office. And he was very kind, and I'll tell you about that too because we hadn't talked about it. But I wanted I wanted there to be exposure because we need to think. And my only request has been, hey, think for yourself instead of just purely just listening
Shut up
and
and listen.
sheepishly following. What are we doing? And I had just come off of a week of inpatient service where pretty much all my patients didn't really have, it wasn't their pathology, it was the exacerbation of their psychiatric issues that had brought them in and had created pathology in their body. I had 70 something year olds that were committing suicide and, attempted suicide, and they survived it. And they were so sad that they survived it. What am I going to do now? And we know that we've had social distancing, we've had studies on. There was a study back in the day in Arizona that they put people in this in a glass building. They were separated by glass. They couldn't touch each other. They couldn't hug. They could only speak with each other over the phone and see each other through the glass. And it was supposed to be a 6-month experiment, and they had to terminate within 2 weeks because people they lost their minds and they got so aggressive that they had to stop the study. So it goes to show, we obviously need each other. We need touch. We need hugs. We need that exchange of the beauty that we have with each other. And in masking, what it does is, in military, this is true, that soldiers who cannot shoot and kill, they will cover up the face of the victim with a mask. Eyes are open, and then they can kill. And so we're talking about a global movement of masking everybody. And what are we doing? What are we doing for our children? Children are scared. I have pediatrician friends who usually see, pre-COVID, it was maybe 2 patients per month, pediatric patients per month that they would see who had any anxiety and depression issues, that needed true attention. Now they say we have about 4 to 6 every day, and they don't know what to do.
Because you can't put all the kids on antidepressants.
And no, please don't.
Yeah.
Right? But this masking, it really dehumanizes us. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I wanted to point out this important, connection between what Brian was saying. Like, Brian listens to you and he's like, how do we get more doctors to take a position like you? How do we get more leaders, like you said, at the top of the ladder for this trickle down effect to really, well, look what happens. She makes a statement that wasn't that inflammatory. It was just a suggestion. It was just like, here, this is what I think. 2 weeks, I didn't get to finish this. 2 weeks later, the CDC recommended exactly what you said, right? And what happened? You got rained on. You got silenced.
Mm-hmm.
You had to take it down. And I worry, that if the CDC hadn't changed their position, God knows what would have happened. Maybe you would have got canceled. You don't know, right? Absolutely. It's very possible. The tides turned really quickly. The timing of it was quite dramatic and poignant, really, because it just shows that they don't want the system, the companies, Hospitals, insurers, they don't want doctors to stand up and be leaders. They don't want them to think for themselves. They don't want them to disagree with anything. You are to, it is in our society now, we're like, shut up and listen, do what you're told. But it really is even more magnified, extremely powerful energy in the academic and in the healthcare community to shut up and recommend what's recommended. Why are you questioning us? We have been recommending this for 40 years. What are you talking about? You're wrong. And then, just like you said, it's the peers, it's the people that have been doing it for decades who are so hurt. Their egos are so tarnished. They can't even imagine an environment where someone makes a recommendation that doesn't fall in line with the current guidelines. And I think that's really where we're failing, is a healthcare system, is you have completely silenced, shut down, and sequestered physicians. And I do wonder if this whole movement for physician wellness isn't gaining as much traction as quickly, because if you did that, more doctors would be courageous, more doctors would feel less fear. And without fear and with more courage, you're going to change the system. What's going to happen? All of our doctor colleagues are smart. I've said this before. While I may disagree with many of them, doctors, people that have committed their life to healthcare, doctors, nurses, whatever, they are intelligent, loving, caring, compassionate humans. They are not motivated. They research stuff, but when they're put in a position where they have to fear every single time they step, not even over the line, but like on the line a little bit, right? It's stifling, and so few are willing to step out, and so many that do, it's because they finally have enough financial freedom where they're not worried they're going to get their whole livelihood taken away from them. And so many of us are now just employees to a system, so then there's even less motivation, because you're like, dude, I'm just going to work, I'm gonna go home, I'm good, like I'm fine. The problem with that is they're not fine, because they don't ultimately then do the work on themselves, because you can't have cognitive dissonance. You can't like live one way and then go and tell your patients to live a completely different way. That's impossible. That like creates your brain to go insane. So then everyone ends up living this kind of like slow decline, feeling worse, anxiety setting in, and oh my God, I got to go hit the gym for an hour, when they don't. They just need to do some other more simple, more even cheaper work. And so it's like, it frustrates me. And I think that this story, this like experience you had, is just a huge example of what's wrong with our healthcare system on a fundamental level. Not just the recommendations are wrong or they're old, not just that the pharmaceutical companies and the drug industry is all powerful and dominates and pays for our education, and funds UNM on some level, you know what I mean? And IU, where I trained, in all of these amazing, Harvard, all these places are funded by food companies. The data's out there. We've talked about it before. So, I think that it is like so important. I was so excited to have you on the podcast so people can see that you can do it a different way. Like you don't have to do it the way we've been trained. You can integrate your life experience and your education and create a truly meaningful approach. And you're just a perfect example of that. I love it.
It's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of work, my friend.
Well, thank you so much for doing it. You're my new hero. I haven't talked to Lida lately. I didn't, we were just hanging out as friends, and we didn't get, into all this work stuff, I guess you could call it. And this is amazing. I completely am in love with everything you're saying. I love the message of connecting back to nature. And this is what we were talking about before we got on air. We had a nice talk about this, and that's what we're trying to do at Sapien. That's really all that I do. I sometimes it gets into the weeds of, oh, are we making nutrition recommendations? We're looking at studies. We're doing all these like, modalities, or I'm not into the biohacking world, but it's like, let's do this. Okay. All that is just getting back to nature. That's the essence of this. That's what we're trying to do. And we just need to do more of that. And everything falls into place. But I mean, I think we need to have you on again, go into more details, put this out on Peak Human as well as Sapien, just have the world be exposed to you and your information. I want to even talk like Sapien babies. Like you're having that. I
Yes.
want to have a whole
A
episode on
whole
Sapien babies.
podcast.
I have
And
I have
I
people here in Austin. I know so many Sapien parents with amazing healthy children. It's like they're not even the same as other kids. Every day there's stories. They're like, oh well, just compare it to the other kids in the class or the school or the daycare. They're just not even comparable. So
beautiful.
we'll have to have you on again.
Yeah, let's, and I think before the baby starts with the mom, and what is the mom eating while they are pregnant? And there's a whole thing that I'm also working on about going back to nature with moms and teaching new moms how to be moms, because we don't know. Babies hand it to us and we push them out and we're like, that's a crazy experience, but no one talks about that either. But that's something that I'm working on as well on the side, because comes from a place of service. We need this work as well. But another plug-in for nature, if we could use hemp for creating bags, like instead of plastic bags, could we do that? Like we don't need more buildings, we don't need more new material of that does not decompose. Can we, someone who is listening, I'm sure is very smart and knows all about it, that I mean, bamboo can be used as, for structures. It's very strong. Why can't we use hemp? Why can't we use we do have some cornstarch. For my retreat, I only use uh composed decomposable plates and forks and knives. That's it. Like, I don't use anything that will not go back to earth. Because this is our home. It's like in the middle of your home, piling up a bunch of plastic. Like, that's not okay. Like, you'd clean it up. And then where does our trash go? We recycle, we compost, all of it. But then I think about, where does my trash go? And I cringe. I'm like, what are we doing about that? So, like, Sweden, I think, figured out how to use trash and recycled materials as a energy source. And if one country has figured out, Costa Rica does a beautiful job. Why can't we learn from them and do it on large scale here in America? Again, we get lazy and we say, oh, it's the easy way to do it. The same thing we did with healthcare, we're doing to our planet. We are constantly hurting our planet, and she gives us unconditional love and unconditional abundance and excellence and beauty. And we are powerful beings that we can create, and to create that path of health for our planet whew, is where we need to all dream about and work towards. So thank you for your work, because your work is definitely in line with that. Really appreciate you guys.
All right. Thank you so much. Gary, do you have any closing words just to wrap us up here?
I mean, there's so much to talk about. And Lida, thank you for being so open and honest. And I think, like, just to say some of the stuff you said today in the position you're in is so important for people to understand that, you're put your butt on the line when you say a lot of this stuff, because it goes against the grain. And, like Brian said, we need more physicians like you. We need more leaders like you.
We're growing them through my retreats.
Yeah. And we'll do it again. I think that, there's so much to talk about when it comes to pregnancy, maternal health, and baby. I think that's a whole different conversation, and I'm sure we'll get that coordinated. But I guess just to wrap it up, where can people find you? People are interested in reaching out to you, learning about you, following you. Where can they do that?
So on Facebook, I'm Lida Fatemi. You can find me there. On Instagram, I'm Lida Fatemi and Conscious Physician. I have a website, Conscious Physician, that I created for just that. I coach physicians. I coach anyone that needs it. I'm an executive coach. I bring Sapien in my executive coaching. They need to know about your work, and it helps them. That's really the main principle here, that use something that brings health to you and brings healing to your body and your mind. And so, yeah, consciousphysician.org is my website. You can reach me through there.
So reach out to her. She's amazing.
You're
Thank you
amazing.
for
You guys
listening.
are amazing. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for being open to having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Love you guys. Thank you
Love
for
you.
listening.